Everybody, I see you're logging in. So good to see everybody. It's a beautiful day in Naples, Florida, the place the Holy Spirit lives. Thank you for joining us. We are continuing our series on relationships, the kingdom keys to relationships, particularly the state of being single and or married. And we're going to continue that today. I did want to remind everybody, those of you that are going through the School of Influence for Agents of Change, it's a loosely based format of the mentorship program that I went through with Dr. Myles Munroe. But it is for those that want to make a difference in their life. Those of you that realize life is so much bigger than you, that what God has called you to do is bigger than you, but He needs you in order to get His will done on the earth. So He is waiting for us to engage and initiate our purpose, which is our passion is discovered in that, and you just become alive. There's nothing like it. I want to greet everybody. There are so many. I see you guys on Facebook. Hello. I see everybody on Webinar Jam. Greetings, Denver, Raleigh, North Carolina. The UK is here. The Netherlands, of course. Michigan's in the house. Charlottesville, Virginia, and some more from the Netherlands and from the Bahamas. I wanted to jump right in for today. We do have the Agents of Change Symposium. We are moving it to the summertime. School is out. Bring your kids. We're going to be doing workshops. Excuse me if I start coughing because I've been sick. It's nothing serious, but it's this, you get this frog in your throat, and if you talk too much, then I have a coughing fit. So I pray I do not have that issue today. But I will be drinking plenty of water. So I wanted to, before we get into the teaching, there was one thing that I really wanted to reiterate is when it comes to relationships, marriage, particularly what we're continuing on today, a lot of us think, I'm in love, we're in love, and therefore everything's going to work out and it's going to be easy and great. Well, that is not actually the case. As we've been discussing in the past, love is not necessarily the key to making a successful marriage. There are many components that are involved, and one thing is to gain understanding, to get knowledge. So we likened it to having a tool belt, right? Or all the tools in your toolbox, and you put them in your tool belt, and you have them. So that's, for instance, saying, okay, I'm saved, I go to church, I read my Bible, I pray. That's having the tools in your toolkit. But it's a completely different situation when it comes to actually knowing how do they work. Can you fix your car? You need understanding. You need some knowledge. You need some wisdom to apply the knowledge and actually to fix your vehicle. So that's why you have these mechanics. They actually know things. Whereas if you don't know anything and you have a toolbox, that still doesn't get you far when it comes to fixing your car. So a lot of times we go into marriage with these tools and we think that it's enough. And in actuality, that is not what it entails. So I'm going to show you, there are many resources that Dr. Myles Munroe wrote for our benefit. He is not here, but he is here. So I highly recommend you read these books. This is Love and Marriage. It's a phenomenal book. Get your highlighters out. Take your notes. And we do have some Q&A from the last session I'm going to cover. So if you are separated, if you are divorced, even if you are single and married, get this book. This was the first book Dr. Myles Munroe wrote many years ago. And I highly recommend you get it. It covers so many amazing topics and subjects. For instance, you talk about submission. Well, what do you really know about submission? Is it a religious idea we have of submission? So this goes all into what true submission is and who you truly submit to, and it goes into the husband's responsibility. It goes into the traumas of divorce and how to deal with it, life after divorce. Here's a whole chapter 13 on a husband's responsibility. So this is a phenomenal resource. I highly recommend everybody gets this book. This one, because we do have some questions that we've been receiving regarding those that have been divorced. This is a phenomenal book. Those of you that are married, even if you are not married yet, get this book. If you're engaged, both of you read this book. It's powerful. Here we go into Mastering the Art of Communication. That's a major key. You may be able to know how to talk and speak, but can you communicate? And this is something that I am constantly working on. There's that book, Men Are From Mars, Women Are From Venus. Well, the way we communicate may be completely different than our spouse or our fiance. So that's a phenomenal chapter, Mastering the Art of Communication. Then it goes into loving yourself. We did a session on that. That is so important before you can even love your partner, to love somebody else. Good. I see people are commenting that book changed my life. Yes, I see a few of you have commented on that. So here we go. The Question of Submission. That's in this book. Okay. So everybody buy 2 copies of this book, one for yourself, one for your spouse. Put it in their stocking. If you want a successful marriage, you need to know how to use the tools. You need to get understanding, wisdom, and knowledge and actually apply them. You can't just go through life thinking, okay, I have the Holy Spirit, I understand the kingdom, and you think everything's going to be grandioso. You need to learn to apply the knowledge, but you have to get the knowledge. The Holy Spirit just doesn't dump it in your brain. It's up to you. That's why Jesus said renew your mind. So renew our mind and kingdom thinking in all facets of our life, especially those that are married. The foundation of your ministry, of your life, of everything you're doing, including raising your kids, comes from the foundation of your marriage. And Dr. Myles Munroe was adamant. You have to have a good, strong marriage. Don't even think about starting a ministry if your marriage is not on the right foundation. We can fool people for a little bit, but you can't fool them forever. So I highly recommend you get these books. And of course, I cannot negate these 2 books, The Power and the Purpose of the Woman and The Power and Purpose of the Man. I forgot to grab it. There's also a study guide for them. So men, read this book because we're a different species. Men are a different species. I mean, we're all the human species, but the way our minds work, the way that we were built, the way that we function is completely different than our spouses. So get understanding if you're a man on the woman, and women get understanding on yourselves. Then you'll understand where you fit in your roles, and you can work in unison with one another and, truly be powerful when it comes to fulfilling your vision. You can have a wonderful marriage. You can have an amazing family life, raise your children together, but you need to understand the function of each of you. And then there's no misconceptions. And a lot of times we go into marriage thinking or assuming certain things, and we assume certain things about our spouse or our role, and that may not necessarily be the case. So get these books, read them. Good, you guys are getting them. You can go on Amazon, find them. I see other people. These books have changed your life. Now, don't forget that this summer, I'm going to put this on the webinar jam here for you guys. Those of you that have gone through come together. So you can brainstorm, you can truly make a difference. We're going to have workshops. The youth are going to have workshops. Brittany and Melissa are working on those now. So it's going to be workshops for each discipline that we are in. So that is so key when it comes to actually into your community to make a difference and initiate change. That's what change agents do. What's the point of having the kingdom and understanding the kingdom if you do nothing with it? You have to bear some fruit. You can't just keep it. It cannot be contained. And God was very clear. Jesus said that he will take the kingdom away from those people who do not produce its fruits. So listen, let's produce some fruits, people. We cannot, the kingdom isn't given in vain. You can't just sit on your top and say, oh, this is a good book. Oh, this is true. No, you have to apply it and you have to initiate it. So actually, we're going to talk about how you do that in a marriage today as we continue with part 4 on kingdom laws of relationships. We're going to cover a few of the Q&A that I didn't get to last week. And the first one was, I have a marriage question. Me and my husband got married by eloping 22 years ago. We were married in the registry, but not in a church. We are happy in our marriage and came to know God about 10 years ago. Do we have to marry in a church now that we know what we know? Well, here's the key when it comes to marriage. It's the vows that matter. It's the dedication and commitment to the marriage institution that matter, not the location of where you took those vows. So that's really key. So we cannot be religious about it and think, oh, you have to do it in a church. You can, but it's not necessary. You can do it in a garden. Don't forget, you are the church. So wherever you go, you are the ecclesia. Going to a building doesn't change any of that or enforce any of that, because you are it. You have the Holy Spirit wherever you go. So you can get married on a boat. You can get married on a cruise. You can get married, but you're doing it. But as long as you have the understanding, you're doing it and making the vows before God. That is the key here, not the location of where you do it. So that should be a relief for you. The next question is, how do you proceed from being a divorced person and now a kingdom citizen while the other partner has married already? Again, read this book. There's a whole chapter on the aftermath of trauma, the traumas of divorce, broken relationships. So I highly recommend Divorce is Not the Problem. That's a phenomenal chapter. Right here, chapter 10 of this book. So read this book. It will walk you through that, how to proceed, okay? And then the last question is, I have a question about right standing. If you have offended somebody and you go and apologize and they don't accept the apology, what do you do? Well, you can never force something against anybody's will. All you can do is comply and be obedient to obeying what God said to do. So your role is to obey God. You go to them, you ask for forgiveness, you try to make it right. If they don't accept it, that's on them. But your job is to continue to walk in love with them and obey the King. And that is what he said to do. So you continue to do that. Okay, so I hope that helps some of you guys. Now we're going to talk about Dr. Myles. When we were in this marriage retreat, he used the example of making an omelet. And I think this is an amazing example. We used the wedding cake in the past, but he said marriage is like an omelet. It is only as good as the eggs, the individual eggs that go into the omelet. So if you have one bad egg and one good egg and you make an omelet, that's still not going to be a very good one. So the quality of the omelet or your marriage is determined by the quality of the eggs as the individual, as the singleness that you guys each are. And we covered that in depth in, I believe it was the first webinar. So go back and watch that, refer to that. So once you have created an omelet, you cannot separate the eggs again and try to start over. That's not how it works. You can never get them back to the original state. So that's why it's so important if you're in the single state and say you are married and you're like, oh my gosh, it's a big mess. Listen, be responsible, get information, understand. The book on understanding the power and purpose of a man is phenomenal. When I read this book, I understood my place, where I function best. I understood where I can maximize my potential in my role, and then it complements my husband. And when he's functioning his role, if I were to try to function in his design, how he was built, I would malfunction. And I think that's what we have going on is women don't understand their proper role, nor does the man. So it's so important you understand your proper role. And when you come together, then you have a unified, solid front. It just works. It complements each other. And listen, we're all a work in progress. All of us, me included. I am constantly learning. I picked up this book again and I started rereading it. So even if you've read it once, continue rereading and getting knowledge and understanding. Because I remember I read this book when I think we were about 4 years married. Now it's 10. I'm picking it up again. I'm rereading it because we're at a completely different stage now. Now we have children. I did it before. So that when you enter that into the equation, it changes everything. So it's so important you continue getting knowledge and applying it. I'm going to cover 10 unhealthy reasons for getting married. Number 1, despite your parents. Bad reason to get married. Number 2, to escape an unhealthy home. Horrible reason. Number 3, a negative self-image. You think, oh my gosh, finally somebody wants me, and you just settle for whoever shows you attention because you don't understand your own value or you have a negative self-image about yourself. Number 4, never get married on the rebound. Never get into another relationship on a rebound. Bad decision. Take that time to spend getting to know yourself, developing yourself, loving yourself first, becoming whole as a whole person before you rebound. Another unhealthy reason, the fear of being left out. You may feel like you're the only one left who's not married. I mean, Matthew and I were married. We were just, oh my gosh, I can't even hardly remember. We were 1 month. He was 34 and I was 1 month away. So I was 33. And by then, most of our friends in their 20s get married, and you may feel the same way. But that is not a reason to get married. Trust me, there are many married people who feel they are in a prison and wish they could be single again. Another bad reason is fear of being independent, fear of hurting or rejecting another person. I know I talked to somebody recently who said they accepted the marriage proposal because they didn't want to hurt or reject the other person. The other person was unbalanced mentally, and they thought they would become suicidal so they never broke up with them when it was time for engagement. They continued with it and ended up getting married. Well, it didn't work out. It didn't last. They were married for 6 years. So that's not a reason to get married either. And that happens. I know this person very well. Another unhealthy reason is to be a therapist to them, trying to fix them, right? You think if you get married, that will also help and fix them. Not a good reason. And not a good reason to be in a relationship either, at all. Another unhealthy reason for marriage, and this I think is predominant, especially in religious circles, is to have sex. Because it's so built up and you're thinking, oh my gosh, I could finally have it if I just get married. So that is not a healthy reason for marriage. And number 10, it is not healthy to get married because of pregnancy. I have a family member that her mother pretty much forced her to get married. She didn't want to, but because she was pregnant. And of course it didn't work out. And it was just a domino effect of bad scenario going on. Okay, some people are looking for the book titles. Love and Marriage, The Purpose and Power of Love and Marriage. Oh, good, Brittany put them down. Thank you, Brittany. All right, you got it covered. She's got my back. Good job. Here are amazing reasons for getting married. To express God's love, to express your personal love towards the individual, to fulfill sexual needs and desires in a godly way, to begin a family, for companionship, to share life with one another, to fulfill each other's needs. I love this one, to maximize each other's potential. Listen, when you have two people who understand their potential and are drawing it out of each other through their vision, it is powerful. And to enhance spiritual growth. So those are good reasons to get married. But here's some marital misconceptions that we have sometimes. We think procreation is the primary purpose of marriage, but it does not. Marriage does not exist for the purpose of sex. Sex is only 10% of marriage. Marriage transcends sex. So we can't think that's the accumulation of it. So that's not a good conception. Now, here's the kingdom marriage of standards set by Jesus Christ himself in Matthew 19:8. He said to them, Moses, because of the hardness of your hearts, suffered you to put away your wives. But from the beginning, it was not so. This was not the original intent and plan of God. So therefore, what Jesus is saying is divorce is an act of your will, hardness of your heart. Because sometimes people don't have those tools to know how to deal with infidelity, to how to deal with unfaithfulness, to how to deal with broken trust. There's a lot of issues. I've talked to a lot of people. So you need information. And if you don't know some things, I got to tell you, some ideas I've had about marriage have changed, even recently this past year. I was like, oh my gosh, because a lot of us have experienced or witnessed horrible marriages in our families' lives. So we have this, this concept of what it should be. And if it isn't this, then I'm going to skip it. Or I'm just going to throw it away. And I've seen that in some of my family members' lives because they dealt with some issues that we witnessed in our family and they're like, skip this. And they just throw the marriage away. And trust me, they're dealing with the consequences. But if you have tools, if you have people that can help you, God gave you pastors, he gave you books, he gave you people that you're submitted to that can help you. So don't just throw it away. Get understanding. And Jesus is saying, listen, it is not God's original intent for divorce to happen. It's an act of your will because you've hardened your heart towards that person. However, except for fornication, you shall be married to one another. But if somebody committed adultery, then you can put them away. So that's according to Jesus, a reason to not get divorced. But listen, you can still make it work even through infidelity. It can still work. But you have to be committed to the institution of marriage. You have to be committed and dedicated to make it work. And it can and will work. But it's a lot of work. So marriage, for those of you that may feel pressure to get married, or perhaps you have a broken family, say you've divorced and you have children, and people are pressuring you, you need to get married again. Marriage is an option. It is not a mandate. Nowhere will you see that God requires us to get married. So this is key. You can see that in verse 10, 11, and 12. Jesus continues in Matthew chapter 19. But marriage is an honorable state if you choose to get married. The choice is yours. Never feel forced to get married. I know I had one of my best friends. Oh my goodness gracious, Lord help her. We were best friends in high school, and she went away to college, and then right at the end of our senior year in college, she lived in a different state. She got married. And after the wedding, I was talking to her a few days, well, it was probably a month later. No, it was a few years later I talked to her. And she said, you know, he was a youth pastor. My parents really thought this was what was best for me. And she said, but it's really not what I wanted. And she's miserable. I mean, absolutely miserable. Her parents basically kind of forced her to get married because she was dating him. And they're like, this is the best guy you've ever dated. You need to, and they really made her feel guilty into marrying him. And she did it. And, you know, there's more stories to this story. It didn't end, but I remember, gosh, we were at our 20 year high school reunion. And I said, and I wasn't married. I didn't have children yet, and neither did she. And I said, you know, did you ever think about having kids? And she says, yes, but not with my husband. I'll never forget that statement. Here she's been married to somebody for 20 years and wants children, but not with him because she doesn't want to be married to him. And I was like, oh my gosh. I mean, that's some deep stuff. I want kids, but not with my husband. So please don't let anybody force you or pressure you to get married. Now, here's a key, and if there's anything you hear during this webinar, it is this. Marriage is more important than the married, meaning marriage is more important than those that are married. The institution of marriage is more important than you. Marriage is unchanging, but the married people change. They evolve. Hopefully they grow and evolve for the better. You know, sometimes we get sloppy, we get lazy, we get complacent, we get familiar with one another, and that's a very dangerous place to be. Dr. Myles Munroe talked about that, the danger of familiarity and assuming you know what your spouse is thinking or what their reaction will be. That's a very dangerous place to be. So success in marriage does not depend on spouses committing to each other as much as committing themselves to the institution of marriage. We are going to make this work no matter what. We can get through anything. It was so funny. I don't know what sparked this, why my husband said this. We just put the kids to bed last night. We're in bed. He held my hand. He goes, you know, we're in this together. And I go, okay. I don't want to assume what he was. I said, we're in what together? Well, we're a team. We're a good team. We're making this happen. And I said, making what happen? He said, marriage. We're in this together. And I said, yes, honey, we're 10 years in. We're in this together. What did you think it would be? And he says, I'm just so happy we're in this together for the long haul. So I didn't really I was trying to read this book, so I didn't really go down that rabbit trail with him. But I think he was realizing big picture, we're in this together, and he was just glad, realizing I'm in it for the long haul also. So that gives your spouse comfort. It gives them security that you're not just going to bail. And I remember he made a statement to me a few months ago. He was like, you know, I don't want you to just bail if something happens. And I'm like, where does that come from? What are you talking about? And he goes, well, you know, your parents were divorced. And I said, my mom stayed with him for 30 years. She refused to get a divorce. My dad, they were separated for 7 years. She still wouldn't give him a divorce. And I was like, honey, no, I'm in it for the long haul no matter what. And he goes, good. And so he was just relieved to know that, because a lot of children that come from divorced families do get divorces. So he was relieved to know that I didn't have that as an option. So for whatever reason, he expressed it and I expressed it back, you know, that made him feel more secure. I didn't know he was feeling that, but I'm glad I could help him feel that security. So in essence, the institution of marriage is more important than our personal feelings. I'm going to say something and hear me. If you can take the feelings out, that's one of the keys. Not that you're not supposed to feel, but it's not, everything shouldn't be so personal. The institution of marriage is more important than your feelings. You will get offended. They will hurt your feelings. You know, a lot of times we say things we don't mean, or we didn't mean it that way, or we thought we were being funny. But listen, we can't take it personally. And I've had to learn that. You just don't take it personally. Again, that's where communication comes into play, the art of communication. So I know my husband sometimes will say things and it may hurt my feelings, but I'm not going to let it fester or foster. I'm going to like, you know what? He just didn't know what he was saying. And I don't get in an argument. I don't bicker with him about it. Now, if there's a complete misunderstanding, I'll say, well, maybe you didn't understand that this is really what happened, and that's why I did what I did. And maybe I'll bring enlightenment to him. But let me tell you something. The marriage institution is more important than my personal feelings. I had to come to that conclusion a long time ago, because that's why people have affairs. They say, oh, my needs aren't being met. I don't feel like I'm getting I don't feel those feelings anymore. You know what, was everything based on chemicals? Was it based on your sex drive? Marriage is more than chemicals. And a lot of times we reduce our life to chemicals. So again, the key to this is getting understanding, getting knowledge, and applying it. Everybody order these books if you're married, even if you're not married. Get more knowledge and get more information. There are things you'll read in here. I can't cover everything in the webinar, and I don't know enough to even cover everything in a webinar. I'm 10 years in, and I'm still learning too. But the little I know, I'm very happy to share with you guys. So here's the honor of marriage in Hebrews 13:4. Marriage is honorable amongst all. So if you're married, understand it is valuable. That's what honorable means. It's costly, it's highly esteemed, it's beloved, it's precious. I came from a family where marriage wasn't, how do I put it? To my mom it was, but to my dad, it wasn't that important. Family wasn't that important. His work was everything. So he didn't have a lot of value in marriage. He didn't esteem my mother to the degree she should have been, because his dad told him, never get married, it's a prison. So my dad had that mentality that marriage was a prison. Now it can be, but it doesn't have to be. It's completely up to you. So marriage, understand, is more important than me as a person. The institution of marriage is more important than you, is more important than the spouse. Marriage is a choice and love is a force, but it is generated by a decision. You chose your spouse. Now you live up to that standard that the kingdom has set for us and make it work. So let's continue. We're halfway through to the 7 challenges that leaders face in marriage. Here's the 7 challenges that you will face if this is an issue for you in your marriage. Number 1, if you have competing visions. The husband and the wife can each have their own vision, but if they compete or they think one is more important than the other, then there's going to be issues. Number 2, if they're competing for priorities, there's going to be issues. Number 3, if there's competing passions, there are going to be issues. Allow your spouse to foster their passion. Matthew and I both give each other space and room. Now there's times where maybe you have, say you have, when it comes to your passion, your vision, and you have a scheduling conflict and you have children, somebody has to stay with the children. You have to work and somebody has to take the back seat for that time. And there's many times where I've sacrificed for Matthew for the sake of the vision that he has, and likewise him for me. But you should never be competing for time. You should never be competing for resources. We should be sharing all of these as well as competing for a sense of value. You should never feel, I should never, and I've had to be very, very adamant about this. I should never make Matthew feel, or my kids feel, that the vision is more valuable than them. And I thank God I learned this before I had children, because when I had a religious mindset, if I'm doing the things of God, that's more important than anything. But we can't confuse God's priority in our life for what he's called us to do. Our husbands, our spouses, our wives come first. Our God comes first, then our spouses, then our family, our children, then the vision. And when you have your priorities in proper order, it will work. But a lot of times we confuse the vision God's given us for him. And we get confused. And we see this happening quite a bit when it comes to ministries. So they should never have to compete for a sense of value. They should never compete for security. They should never wonder about your loyalty to them. These are key issues that many people face. Now let's talk about the 7 principles for success in a marriage. Number 1, one of my favorite things, submit to the one principle of vision. Understand that as a family, we're going forward with this vision. So there should be a principal vision that incorporates everything and everyone in your family. Remember, vision is always corporate. Let it incorporate everything and everyone. Use the vision as a complement to the final destiny. Everybody has a piece to play in the corporate vision. So this goes when it comes to family units, ministry units, business units, community units. That's how vision operates. So you can have two visions in a family, right? But they work in context with one another. They're always completing one another's visions. You don't snuff somebody's vision out. You accommodate for it. And that is something that Matthew and I have always been working on. And again, sometimes you will have to sacrifice your vision for the sake of your spouses. And it may be for a season. Or you may have little children. I've had to do things completely differently now that I have children than when I was married. Just with Matthew, without children. It's a completely different game now. So there will be seasons where maybe you will have to put your vision on the shelf for a season. And that's okay. But be in agreement with it. Let each other understand each other's vision so that they can complement and not compete. We should never have competing visions. We should never think my vision's more important than yours. So Matthew and I are very clear when it comes to our visions and supporting one another in it. That brings unity. Unity is key. We should always, number 2, agree on priorities. Agree on priorities when it comes to raising your children, when it comes to your vision, when it comes to finances. These are very important aspects. Number 3, respect and accommodate one another's passions. And this goes for your children too. Always encourage them in it. And never make them feel like one is more important than the others either. Number 4, always organize and manage your time. Make sure you keep your projects organized, but not only that, your time. It's easier to make decisions with your time and your priorities when you know what they are. So listen, I had to stop doing meetings when Maverick was 2 years old because it was really coming into family time. Now we have a family. Now we have to accommodate for them. And I stopped doing Sunday meetings. My family was more important than me doing Sunday meetings and discipling people. I can disciple people in other ways, and that's what I've had to do. So accommodate the vision, but make sure your priorities are right when it comes to it. Number 5, prioritize your distribution of your finances. I remember in the very beginning, Matthew said, you're in charge of the tithes. You make sure they're paid every month. So I get his paycheck, I get my paycheck, and I do the tithes every month. I pay the bills also. I happen to be the numbers person. I'm good with numbers. So that is my role. But we came into agreement with what our priorities are. And number 1, they're the tithes and the offerings. There's no doubt about that. The 6th principle for success, feed the need for importance. Let your spouse understand they are important. And I have to be real careful with that. I can't let them think that what I'm working on or the project is more important than them as a person. I have to keep my priorities in the forefront of my mind at all times. And number 7, protect from creating insecurity. That's what that does. So incorporate your spouse, the life of your spouse, in with your life. Don't have competing separate visions. I'm going this way over here, and then you're going this way over here. You can have 2 visions and you're going in the same direction and you're completing one another in it. And this protects from creating insecurity and them thinking they're not valuable. That's very important. So now let's finalize as we talk about the priority of marriage, and it comes down to one word, is unity. Unity is key when it comes to marital success. The key to corporate unity is for the good of the whole. It's good for the family unit. It's good for the community unit, which affects a nation. So unity is priority. The power of unity is the key to success and generational preservation. And you can quote Dr. Myles for that. You want to preserve the next generation? Unity is the key. Now, with that understanding, I have to explain what unity is not. I can't assume we all think the same thing. Unity does not mean the same, sameness. It doesn't mean uniformity. It doesn't mean likeness, being identical, being alike. It doesn't cancel your uniqueness. It doesn't cancel the differences that you may have with your spouse. And it is not the suppression of your distinctions. And it is not the denial of your difference. Your differences, what makes you unique, what distinguishes you from your spouse, are things that should be celebrated, right? Used together when it comes to marriage and the vision and raising a family, not snuffing out what makes you different. So you have to understand now what unity is. Unity means being one in purpose. You cannot understand your purpose unless you know who you are. When the woman takes her rightful place in the family unit and you understand your purpose, then unity is guaranteed and the husband knows it as well. Then you're not competing. Then you're not vying or trying to find your sense of value and understanding, getting your esteem from another place. Unity is corporate commitment, being committed to the family unit. All right, we're going to make this work no matter what. We're going to raise these kids together, and we're going to do it this way in unity. It is corporate agreement. So you can still keep your uniqueness, what makes you you, and yet think and go in the same direction and have oneness of purpose, oneness of unity, knowing exactly what the vision is, knowing exactly how you're going to discipline your children together, knowing how you're going to deal with situations when it comes to your marriage. So submission, unity is submission to a common goal or purpose, but it doesn't take away what makes you you. You need to bring your best you to the table and be committed to the purpose. It's commitment to a greater cause than what your personal or private view is. So we must be committed to the institution of marriage, committed to making it work, committed to unity of the vision, bringing your visions together, being in agreement with one another, supporting one another when it comes to the vision. That's the key. And then you go forward together rather than competing. And listen, I know a couple, and it's not pretty when you have two people vying for position when it comes to their visions. It is not a pretty picture. There's animosity that gets involved. There's resentment that gets involved. So accommodate each other for each other's vision. It's key. Sit down with them. Go over your vision. And some of you may say, Trista, my spouse doesn't have a vision. It took my husband, it was about we married 3 years in. It took him a few months because he didn't want to feel I was forcing him to write down his vision. But I needed to know what I was working with. What are you going to give me to work with? And then one day we were snow skiing, and I went to go get a massage, and he was sitting in the hotel room. When I came back, he had his vision written down. I was floored. I was shocked. But he did it with him at the place where he wanted to do it, and I wasn't forcing him to do it. I didn't nag him like I did to start his own business. There's a difference. So I was just like, honey, I would love to help you with where you're going in life, and let's write down your vision. Let's document it. Let's go there together. I want to help you. And it took him a little bit. He probably was thinking for those few months what it was. So when he got down to document it, it was truly something he wanted to do, and it's who he was. And I've held him to it. Now, there's a few things we've taken off the plate when it comes to it, but we are very clear on each other's what our vision is, and we support each other in it. Now, there's times when it comes to, and I'll give you an example, when it comes to unity, we may not agree on things. We may not see eye to eye on things, and we do compromise. So for instance, I can give you a few examples, but one recent one was there was a little Montessori school that opened up about 2 months ago down the street from us. And I wanted to send Shiloh when she's 2, which is right after Christmas. I wanted to send her to the little Montessori school. She's very social. Maverick's at school. She wants to be around. I don't want her just hanging at the house all day. And I want her, 3 hours in the morning to go to the school. So we went for a tour of the school. On the way we were driving to the school, I was telling him how amazing Montessori school is, and how I even have the brochure here, and how their philosophy is just key to a children's foundation. Listen to this quote from Mrs. Montessori. Listen to this. This is so, oh my gosh, this is amazing. She said, "Man masters almost everything but himself. He knows almost everything but himself. He avails himself to the most hidden treasures, but does not use the immense riches and powers that lie within himself." The philosophy of Montessori is amazing. And I'm like, I want Shiloh to go to the school. So as I was driving him to the school, I was telling him about the philosophy of the school. So we took the tour. I wanted to get his input, how he felt. And we were driving back, and he says, "Trista, I don't like the neighborhood. I have a problem with the neighborhood." And I go, oh. I'm so focused as the mom, about the philosophy of the education my child is getting. That was my focus. A brand new facility, brand new school. They were opening the next day, and I was very excited. So that's what I saw, the environment. Well, my husband saw a completely different thing than what I saw. And he says, "Trista, I don't know how to break this to you, because I agree with you in the philosophy, but I could not drop my daughter off in the morning and then go to work and feel that she's in a safe neighborhood, because it's not a safe neighborhood. Let's turn around, and I want to drive you through this neighborhood." I go, "Oh, okay." So we drove through the neighborhood, and I go, "Yeah, it's okay, maybe a little seedy, but I think it's okay." And he goes, "No, I can't let my daughter, I don't feel safe with my daughter in this neighborhood. I couldn't do it." And I said, "Okay, I understand." And he says, "So what are we going to do?" And I said, "That's fine. I won't send her to the school. That's fine. Because number one, I understand it's my job as the parent to raise them and train them in the ways they are to think. Not tell them how to think, but provide an environment for them to think and guide them in that way." And I said, "That's fine, honey, I understand." So I had to understand that my husband will look at things completely differently than I do. He's a man, I'm a woman. We look at things differently. And then we come and we meet in the middle and we make a decision. And I conceded, because I said, okay, he may be right, and I'm going to go with that. I'm not going to force this one. I won't send her to school. I'll keep her here for another year. In a year, she can go to the school Maverick goes to when she's, 2.5 years old. And I know I will be able to train her in this philosophy of discovering herself. I can do that. This environment at home is conducive to that. And I had to leave it at that. But there's other areas where we come to the conclusion, and the way I wanted to do it was the way we ended up doing it. But in this instance, it wasn't. And I had to trust him in his insight and what he saw and concede to it. So even though we didn't agree, we're still in unity on how we're going to raise our children and the education they're going to get. It just wasn't the way I thought it would be. So I hope that helps you understand how unity works, but you can still have your own opinion. You can still have your own thoughts. And then I wanted to get my husband's opinion, and then we come to a conclusion. So we're going to end on this. Unity is impossible without diversity. You and your spouse are completely different people. And therefore, unity is only possible where diversity is present. So you can be completely different people, but still be unity in mindset. We're going to do things this way. It may be in different little manners. So diversity with unity creates unique ideas, unique visions, unique goals, unique projects. So don't do away with somebody's uniqueness. Don't forsake that. Celebrate their diversity. Celebrate their opinions, but come to a conclusion together. I respect my husband's opinions. I may not agree with them all the time. He respects my opinion. He comes to me with things. We may not agree on everything all the time, but my job isn't to force him to make decisions based on my opinion, what I see. But a lot of times we see eye to eye on things, and when we don't, I give him my opinion, and then he has to live with the consequences of his decision that he makes. But we respect each other's opinion, and I think that's key. I think, a lot of times I'll know what he's going to say or do, but I still want to give him the respect. Let's talk about this together. Let's come and form a decision together. And I think that's one of the keys that really makes it work, is we know we're on the same team together. And together we will get through anything and everything. So you have to be real careful if you have friends or family members that come in and no, don't allow that. Don't allow these little thoughts. They'll plant seeds. Be careful with those thoughts. Listen, don't get your philosophy from the Housewives of Beverly Hills. Don't get your philosophy from the Housewives of Atlanta. Don't operate your marriages. I'm sure there may be some good ones. I don't know. I've caught only glimpses of the show. But be careful what you watch and the ideas that you get. Be careful. I would not recommend you watch any soap operas. Be careful the lifestyles that you're watching, right? God has set a standard for us when it comes to our marriages, which is the foundation of the family, the foundation, the fabric of the communities, the foundation of our nations, all stem from the marriage institution. Never forget, the institution of marriage, marriage is more important than you. It's more important than me. We are in this for life. We are in this together. Now let's have unity while we do this. Again, we don't agree on everything. I'll give you one more example. And I know this may be very controversial, but that's okay. So you can send me emails. You can Facebook inbox me, whatever you want. But when it comes to your families, you have to make decisions as a married couple. And I recently talked to somebody that her husband and her did not see eye to eye when it came to vaccinations. So when I was pregnant with Maverick, I started doing my research. I wanted to research myself so I could get the facts and the information for myself so I could make a decision. My husband had different thoughts on vaccinations. So I said to him, listen, we will not even have a conversation about whether we will or will not vaccinate our children until we're both educated. And I said, so let's go to a lecture. Let's talk to some people. You can watch a documentary. Let's read a book. Let's read blogs, get information, and then come to conclusion. And that's what we did. But after we went to a lecture, then we sat down for dinner, and he said to me, Trista, I trust you. I know you'll do what's right. And he left it up to me. But this was after he was educated. So that's another scenario. So we've had to become unified in the decisions that we make for our children and in raising our children and how we discipline them. All these things are so important. So I know somebody recently I was talking to 2 weeks ago, and we were talking about who even thinks to talk about these important issues before you get married when it comes to, are we going to vaccinate our children or not? I mean, these are hot topics. Some of you may not realize it, some of you may, but when it comes to your own children, these can be very hot topics. and her husband do not see eye to eye, and she has to do what she does not want to do, and it just upsets her with her children so much. And I said, I know, it's tough. It's tough. So these are decisions that you're going to have to make when it comes to raising your children, doing things with them. But the principal key to unity is vision. Vision creates the context for corporate commitment. Listen, we're in this together. We're going to be married for, till death do us part. This is it. Doesn't matter what happens. We will get through it. Be committed to the institute of marriage. You've made a decision. Live with that decision. You may not feel like it all the time. I get it. It's tough. Get information. Get wisdom. Get understanding and apply it. You're just missing some keys. That's it. And this is so important that we get right. As true agents of change, we have to get our relationships right. Remember the two things that are most important to God? Love and law. And love is law. Thank you for joining me today. It's great seeing everybody. I've been seeing your comments, Michael and Deanna Long. Good to see you, Maurice, Vanessa, Paulette. I don't see any questions. Good seeing everybody. Robin, hello. I see a few of you. Louise is on. Hi from Brazil. Good seeing you. Thank you for all of your help. All of you that have been helping with the translations, the voiceovers. You guys are amazing. I mean, it truly takes, oh my goodness, so many people to incorporate a vision. And listen, guys, if we do this together, the message of the kingdom can go out, and then he can come. You guys, he's waiting on us. He's waiting on us. So thank you, guys. Get your marriage right. Get your life right. Get information. Get books. Dr. Myles left us with amazing resources. Apply them in your life. I know you may not feel like it, but do the right thing. All right? Stay with unity. If you don't have a vision, write your vision. If you don't know your spouse's vision, just encourage him to just write. He doesn't have to do a formal vision thing. Just write a few things down on a scrap piece of paper. Husband, what is this? What does this look like for us? I want to help you get towards it. And listen, if you help your spouse fulfill their vision, trust me, it will all come back to you. That's how kingdom works. All right, love you guys. Good seeing you. Albertina, hello. Bye, everybody. Doreen, goodbye. We'll see you guys in 2 weeks. Oh, and don't forget, every other week, Brittany and Xavier are doing the meetings, so they'll be on Facebook Live on the Kingdom Community page. So like our Kingdom Community page, follow it, and you can watch them weeks. So every week you guys will be getting more teaching about the kingdom of God in different aspects. So right now they're going back to Kingdom 101 Basics. So join them, and then the next week I'll be doing the webinar, and then Brittany and Xavier on again. So we have something coming to you guys every week. We're going to continue the relationship series for 2 more webinars to finish out the year. And as we finish out with the holidays, and it's great seeing everybody, and I'll see you in 2 weeks. Bye-bye now.